Welcome into the Set It Off Network. I'm your host, Michael Sedetall. I am with the Christmas spirit filled Will Volk on this wonderful November evening. We're going to be talking about some stuff that's going to be happening in December, though. So I guess the holiday spirit is about us. We have teams that are going to be receiving gifts and some that are going to be receiving coal when the final college football playoff rankings come out in a little less than 3 weeks now, something like that. So, I mean, it is that time of year. We are going to be talking about college football playoffs. Obviously, the rankings dropping this week. A lot of controversy there. A lot of playoff talk going on behind the scenes to kind of distract you from what is going on. You know, these people that make the decisions in college football have a very sneaky way of going at the most busiest time of the year and just happen to throw out that, hey, we could possibly be having a 2014 playoff because, like, who doesn't want more money? As a college football leader and whoever the people that run college football are, like, why would they not want more money? And so, 2014 playoff teams have been discussed lately. Not sure how much steam that thing's going to pick up, but it's just convenient that they do that at like the busiest time of the year in college football to kind of just throw it under the radar. Maybe you'll forget about it a little bit like that. But Will, I kind of want to ask you, but just initial, we are here, like you said, less than 3 weeks away from the playoff committee's final rankings. And obviously, there's a lot of things that still have to shake out. But I want to get your initial thought on probably the biggest debate so far on the college football playoff rankings, and that has been the Notre Dame and Miami debate. I'm sure you've heard all about it. Obviously, both of these teams have 2 losses right now, but there's this thing, that we play called college football, and those teams just happen to play each other. Will, yes, it was a while ago, first week of the season, but that game did in fact happen. And right now Notre Dame sits ninth in the rankings. Miami sits 13th, but they are climbing. They're climbing and they're climbing fast. I believe the initial rankings after they lost was 18, so they've already climbed up 5 spots to that 13th. But kind of want to get your opinion of that, issue, and then just anything else that you've noticed throughout the last couple of weeks with the college football playoff committee.
All right. Well, as far as Notre Dame and Miami goes, so last year I was big time hyping up South Carolina towards the end, put the playoff push for them, right? And I was saying because of how good they played towards the end of the season, it's time to forget about the head-to-head against Ole Miss, forget about the head-to-head against Alabama. And I can't be saying that stuff last year and be saying different stuff this year, right? So we just got to forget that game that happened between Notre Dame and Miami. And I think what the playoff committee is doing here is focusing more on how you finish. That's more important than what happens at the beginning of the season. As long as you didn't get humiliated and embarrassed, and Notre Dame did not do that against Miami. They were close with them. They were close with Texas A&M. Close games in their 2 losses, and they've just flat out dominated people ever since. So Miami, what have they done? They've lost to two, okay ACC teams, definitely not world beaters or anything like that. So I can see what the committee's doing, and I can respect it at this point, honestly.
I bet you can. I bet you can to fit your little narrative. You know what you're doing. You knew that was going to piss me off just saying that. All right,
Well, I
don't
can't
act.
be saying it about South Carolina
Nobody
last
heard you
year and
say that
change
last
course,
year.
right?
We didn't even do the show last year. Nobody heard you say that except me. You could have straight up lied.
You saw
All
me.
right.
Well, I gotta tell the truth.
All right, that is true. We support you telling the truth. But the fact is that's not the truth, Will, because head to head has to matter. Like it has to. Last year when we talked about those 3 teams, those 3 SEC teams, there was no way in the world South Carolina was going to be able to get over both of those teams having lost to both of them. It's one thing if you go 1-1 against them, but if you lose to both of them, it's not even really a discussion. So obviously Notre Dame is in this conversation because of recency bias, having won 8 games in a row now, 9 games in a row, something like that. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a Notre Dame hater. I'll be the first to admit it. Not a big Notre Dame person. I just think they get the benefit of the doubt so often, and they just kind of coast through their schedule. And when they run through turbulence, it's okay, because they always got the whole non-conference thing. Like, so they're playing these games. We really talked about it last week when they played Pitt. Like, Pitt didn't care about that game. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Pitt didn't go into the game like, wow, I hope we lose. Like, they showed up and they played, but it's like that game didn't mean anything to Pitt. These games don't mean anything to people that are playing against Notre Dame. Like, there is not a huge emphasis on like, wow, we really have to beat Notre Dame to stay in it this season. Like, no. But like when Pittsburgh plays Georgia Tech this week, like that game means everything. The significance of that game means significantly more to Pitt and Georgia Tech because of the conference title race. It's not the fact that Notre Dame is going out here and playing bad teams. It's the meaning behind the games is different for Notre Dame's opponents than it is for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is in a must-win spot every single week now, and the teams that they're playing are really, most of them are just focusing on their conference races because they're not good enough to make it as an at-large. The two at-large bid teams that they played, they lost to. So you're facing teams that are, on that fringe of possibly making a conference championship game, and they're more focused on staying healthy and being ready for that conference championship race. They are not worried about what happens when they play a non-conference game against Notre Dame. So that's kind of my whole opinion on it. But one of the scenarios I kind of want to throw out there, a hypothetical scenario that I heard today. Obviously, everybody knows about the Lane Kiffin drama, the Ole Miss, Florida, LSU rumors, and all that stuff is getting heated up like, I mean, to a boiling point where we could know in the next week what Lane Kiffin's decision ultimately is. But I want to read something off of the playoff committee's, own criteria, right? We all remember the Florida State fiasco. Now, let me throw out a scenario. Let's say Ole Miss loses against Mississippi State. All right. And they're
Could
one of
happen.
those two lost teams, right? And then the news breaks that, hey, Lane Kiffin's going to take the Florida job or Lane Kiffin's going to take the LSU job. Well, in that criteria, it says that they take into account loss of key players and loss of coaches. And will we see a same situation like we saw in that Florida State situation where, Jordan Travis gets hurt, and the playoff committee basically says, we don't care that you're undefeated. Your quarterback's hurt, so we just assume that you're not as good as you were. And it sucks that you went undefeated and you're not going to get to play for a playoff spot, but, we just make up the rules as we kind of go. And could this be a scenario where they open up another spot here if Ole Miss slips up? And possibly Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss, because that'd be a situation where we see the playoff committee take Ole Miss out of a playoff scenario because of losing their head coach.
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up that I hadn't really considered. But if you think about it, I think if Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, they're going to be in no matter what. But if they do lose to Mississippi State, which is something that honestly could happen, Mississippi State's a much improved team this year, and anything can happen in these rivalry games. And I'm just checking. Ooh, they got to go to Starkville too. Deal with the Cowbells. It's not a night game. It's a weird 11 a.m. local kickoff. Things can happen, and especially if you lose your coach. Then what's going to happen? I could see the committee doing this if, like, win or lose that game. If Lane Kiffin's not the coach of Ole Miss anymore, entering the playoff, Ole Miss is a different team. And I think win or lose, Ole Miss would drop a few spots in the ranking at least. Now, right or wrong, I don't know. I mean, it is a different team, but then again, they're playing the hypothetical game because we haven't seen Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. We don't know. The replacement could be even better. I mean, we don't know. It's a hypothetical, so maybe they shouldn't drop spots because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be a weird situation for sure. Obviously, a situation Ole Miss doesn't really want to be in. Their probably main focus is focusing on beating Mississippi State to where they don't have to worry about that issue. But I kind of want to talk. We talked about it in the intro a little bit. The 2014 playoff scenario, Will. Now, you know my feelings on this. We talk about this a lot off air. I was never a fan of college football expansion. I thought it diluted the regular season meaning of a lot of big games that, we saw throughout the years that weren't going to mean as much. And then the thought of a 2014, my initial thought when I heard the news was this is just a typical negotiation tactic by the playoff committee to try to expand it to 16. I really thought they were just saying a huge number, kind of like when you're offering, you just say a huge number, and then you're like, oh well, we weren't never going to do the 2014 thing, but let's just do 16. Like that's what I initially thought, but it really sounds like the Big Ten has really proposed this and really is trying to gain traction on this thing. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to gain the traction. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think that a 2014 playoff would be disastrous for the regular season. Now, we have been lucky, Will. I am not going to lie to you here and say my biggest fears were not realized. Like the 12-team playoff has not diluted the regular season, to the extremes that I thought it could possibly, to where we were seeing like teams resting players, maybe stuff like that in the regular season. But a 2014 playoff, Will, do you realize a 2014 playoff, we would be sitting here with Texas and 17 in the rankings right now, having lost their third game this weekend against UGA, and still having margin to lose probably to Texas A&M and being comfortably in a 2014 playoff. So you want to talk about devaluing the regular season? That game last week at Georgia is not the environment that it is, the sense of urgency that it is out of Texas. Just things like that I think of just come to mind. Games throughout the regular season that have happened. The Alabama-Oklahoma game, that game significantly drops in value if there's 24 teams in this thing. I know a lot of people are for the playoff expansion thing, but I just think at a number we have to draw a line. I was wrong when I thought it was going to dilute the regular season at 12 teams, and honestly, the parity that it's brought college football, there has been a lot of benefits to the 12-team playoff, I will admit, but it just feels like, well, 24 teams is way too many. And then you throw in the G5. You'll probably get 2 to 3 G5 teams in there, teams that have no business belonging in a college football playoff to begin with. 12-team, 4-team, doesn't really matter. They don't belong in it. They play a different style of game than these other big programs do. But what is your initial thoughts when you hear 2014 playoff?
Well, we were worried about the 12 team, but it's been okay. The 12 team has been okay because of the parity created by the NIL, the transfer portal. So would adding more teams be okay? I don't know. We'd have to see it play out. I'll tell you this though, all the other levels of football have more teams. FCS has 24. I was doing some research. Division 2 has 32. Division 3 has 40 teams in the playoffs. So, I mean,
We're not even going to entertain that idea. Well, not even going to entertain it.
I've kind of thought a 64 team March Madness style bracket would
Absolutely
be
not.
epic.
There would be
No?
no point. There would be literally 0 point in watching college football September through October. Like no point at all. You could do. How many college basketball games do you watch in November and December?
Oh, I don't watch anything until March, really, unless the
Oh
Gamecocks got
wow,
something big.
wow! I wonder why.
There's
Well, you
not
know
much
why? Because the
before.
entire college basketball community is based around 1 month of the season. All right, and
Yeah.
that's what I fear the most in college football, because college football is a sacred place where falls on the Saturday. 12 times a year, you are guaranteed your football team gets to play a college football game. All right, and those are sacred days. All right, they always have been. I mean, you grew up on college football. You know the difference between the pro game and the college game and what these games mean to these communities, these universities, the pride that goes into it. It's just different, man. And you lose all of that when I feel like you expand and you lose that passion that that energy that college football differs from any other sport, and what I think makes college football the greatest sport in the world. So the 2014 thing is an absolute joke. I don't think it's going to
But
happen. Thank God, but they probably are going to try to expand it more. But I kind of want to get your opinion on the G5 because me and you kind of differ on this because people who make decisions, all right, they assume because a G5 team at some point in history upset a Power 5 team in some point in history in a meaningless BCS bowl or a meaningless, non college football playoff bowl, that they can just compete with anybody. And, right now the hypothetical line would be like Texas Tech and Tulane, I think would be the matchup. And it was like 20 and a half points. Like, who wants to see a 3 touchdown dog going into a college football playoff? Like, why not create more entertainment, generate even more money for G5 schools to support themselves, and just come up with a G5 playoff to balance the time we get in between the college football playoff and the end of the SEC or the conference championships? Like, why not squeeze a 12-team playoff somewhere smack dab in the middle of that thing for the G5? Because that would be super entertaining if I could watch G5 football at its best and they could crown their own national championship. Like, why is that so hard to comprehend? Like, at every level of sports, in high school, you have, 5A, 8A, whatever, and so on and down. And each level has their own style of championship game. So why can't we figure something out to where we can do that in college football? Because there is a group of people out there that thinks the Alabama plays the same kind of football that UL Monroe plays, and that is just a myth that we've all been told that those teams technically play in the same bowl division, and it's just the biggest crock of what, and it's just this farce make believe thing. Thanks to teams like Boise State back in the day, and teams like Tulane that beat USC a couple years ago. Like, thanks to those teams who won those meaningless bowl games years and years ago. Like, now we have to sit here and watch G5 teams get blown out by 30 every single college football playoff.
well, what you're talking about would totally, well, I guess revolutionize the whole Division 1 situation, because then we're kind of in a world, right? Because we'd have to create a different division for all the G5 teams. They're not in FBS anymore, so it's really playoff or bust, kind of like how it is for FCS. And then you don't have all those like bottom tier G5 teams just trying to get to 6-6 so they can go play in a bowl game in front of an empty stadium. That made for TV stuff, on ESPN, like December 23rd at 2 in the afternoon. Like, we might lose that. We might lose that if
Oh
we had the
no.
G5 playoff. Yeah.
Oh no. You're telling me
Yeah.
we're gonna lose the CarQuest Mighty Ducks Birmingham Bowl at 2 o'clock on December 23rd when everybody's at work and nobody is watching football?
It's something to watch though if you're not at work, and like it just holidays have it off. But I don't know. I mean, I can see what you're saying. It's a totally different level of football, and it's hard to imagine a G5 team getting in the playoff and getting one win, let alone winning enough to win a national championship. Hard to imagine that happening in this world that we live in. But I don't know about creating a separate division for them. That might feel like just going too
I
far.
don't I honestly don't understand why the G5's not like fully on board with this though. Like, the TV money that they would get alone from having their own playoff would fund 12 teams instead of just one that happened to make the college football playoff. Like, and it's like, who wouldn't want to watch like Tulane and JMU playing in like a semifinal game on like a Friday night, And it's like, those would be awesome. Those would be great environments that those campuses would get to host playoff games and broadcast their school to the entire nation, because people are going to watch just because it's not the number one division of football. People are still going to watch because it's football. And maybe they can replace it with these 2 o'clock Eastern December 21st bowl games. Like maybe they can do that during bowl season, and instead of having 500 stupid bowl games that nobody cares about, maybe you can have a G5 playoff and everybody can play for something meaningful. And it helps local school communities like invest in their programs because they're like, wow, we made it to the semifinals of the G5 college football playoff last year. Like maybe if we invest more into the program, we can win a G5 championship and so on and so on. It's like, I just don't understand why the G5 is not on board with that. Like, I feel like it is a super win-win for the upper schools and the G5 schools. Like, I just don't understand why the G5, maybe there's logistics involved that I don't really know about. And obviously, like you said, creating a whole new division will probably be part of the problem there. But it's like, I mean, I don't understand. I really don't understand why the G5 is not like all on board to try to get that done.
Well, I've got two thoughts. First off, it kind of feels like the G5 is like a stepping stone to FBS, or no, the power conferences, because they're already in FBS. But you look at all these ex G5 teams now in power conferences in the rankings and maybe contending for the playoff. You got BYU, Utah up there. Houston, they're 8-2 in the Big 12. Those were G5 teams not that long ago, and look at them now. But another point about the G5, I think it would be more entertaining and there would be more interest on those programs if they had their own playoff versus playing in some, bowl game in the middle of the afternoon in front of an empty stadium. But where's the money? Is there more money in playing in bowl game with nice corporate sponsor and good ESPN TV contract, or is there more money in the playoff? I think ultimately the money always wins out, and the money is probably why you'll see the power conferences expand their playoff as well. So are we going to go to a world where we just kill off bowl season entirely? Because if they expand the playoff much further than we already have, I don't see how bowl season can continue. So
We could do a whole show on my thoughts on how we could fix all of these issues, but we're not going to get too in depth. But we've talked about it off air about my relegation system. All right, you want to talk about meaningful football games? All right, you imagine if this week Arkansas was fighting for their SEC lives for a chance to be dropped down to like the Sun Belt and replaced with Tulane. Like, just saying, the relegation system, it's a win-win. It makes the top of the league very interesting to watch and the bottom of the league very interesting to watch. And as long as you win, you get to stay in the conference. If you lose, you got to go to the G5. Just saying. Very fun scenario there. They do it in soccer. They do it in soccer, and it works out pretty well for them. All right, one of the most popular sports in the world. Just saying. They kind of got it figured out over there. One of the biggest concerns, I think, with the playoff era and the expansion era, honestly, is conference championship games. Growing up, me and you, the conference championship weekend was like the biggest weekend of the year, right? I mean, it was always these great matchups because there was so much usually on the line. Like, I mean, how many SEC championships did we watch where it was like top, 5 teams going at it for one spot in the playoff, right? Or the Big Ten, same thing. Or you see a team from the Pac-12 or Big 12 get upset and it costs them a playoff spot, the meaningfulness of those conference championship games. But there are so many scenarios now, Will. I mean, we saw it last year and we've kind of talked about it already. Like, how do you end up punishing a team for losing a conference championship? So SMU is the prime example from last year, right? SMU was not deserving of a playoff spot. SMU coasted through an easy ACC schedule, got to 11-1, played in the conference championship game, was right on that bubble, right? And they ended up losing, the ACC championship, but you would ruin the entire system that is conference championship weekend if you basically say SMU, you would have been better off just not making this thing. Because how many teams like Ole Miss or Georgia or even Alabama right now are sitting here like, God, I hope we don't make it to Atlanta. because it's like all we have is we get an extra week to prepare, we get an extra week off, we get less risk for injury. Winning the conference championship really doesn't gain you much. Like Ole Miss is sitting in that sixth spot right now. Georgia's sitting in that 4-5 range. Could possibly be hosting a playoff game against a G5 team, all right, that they're going to beat by 30. Or they can go and win the conference championship and move into the top three. And yes, get the first round bye, but then play extremely tougher competition and not get a playoff home game. So it's like if you're a fan in Oxford, if you're a fan in Oklahoma, if you're a fan of Georgia, you're really honestly hoping you don't make it to Atlanta because you want those home playoff games. Like those are like gold. Like who doesn't want that on their campus to promote and talk about for weeks upon weeks? So, I mean, we're in a real dangerous spot right now with conference championships because I mean, there are teams all over the field right now that are going to get I mean, throwing out a situation like what if Michigan is on that bubble and they're in that 10 to 12 range, all right, and they're in the conference championship game and then they go and lose by 4 touchdowns to Indiana? Are you going to say, Michigan, you were in, but because you lost by 4 touchdowns to Indiana, we're going to drop you out? Or are you just going to have to say, well, we moved them up there. We're going to have to just stick with them because we would be going against our own word. So there are so many situations out there that just would be a mess for conference championship weekend. How do you kind of feel about that? I know I kind of rambled there for a minute, but how do you feel about that kind of scenario playing out where conference championships are feel like they're losing their meaning, by the second?
Yeah, I mean, it's you've had coaches on record saying like I don't know if it'd be better to play in the conference championship game. Kind of hoping I miss it. Lane Kiffin kind of said something to that effect last year, didn't he? So I think he did, right? So you
Yeah.
know,
And then he didn't have to
I
worry about it.
yeah. But yeah, they didn't have to worry about it because I think he went on to lose 2 games after that. But I think what's the point of even having conference championship games anymore? Because it's you got this unevenness. Some teams have to play a 13th game, others have 12. I would say here's a potential fix to at least prevent that scenario where a team goes down the rankings. Why not just don't release rankings except for the very last week? Like, why does the committee put out rankings week to week to week? The last ones are the only ones that matter. And I mean, they're doing this probably to bring up talking points and get us
Yeah,
all
what would we
talking
talk
about how
about?
they think, what they're going to do. What?
What would we even talk about throughout the week, like while we're
AP
watching the
poll, I
Champions
guess.
Classic? You know, like yeah, we would have nothing to talk about. Will like that's what rankings are for. They're not for the actual purpose. They're for something to talk about,
Yeah.
drive
I'd say if
storylines.
this thing expands much more past 16, then how do you even keep a conference championship game at that point? Because if you're going to 24, you're adding an extra week of the postseason. You need 5 weeks. And by then, we're already going out to MLK Day. Are we talking about going to like the end of January in the future? Maybe early February? I don't know. Ooh, I will say though, the NFL plays conference championships the last Sunday of January. That Saturday is wide open. So if we play the Natty on that Saturday, that would be fantastic. Natty deserves
The
to be on a
national
Saturday, not a
champion,
Monday night.
the national championship should be played on New Year's Day at 4:30 Eastern time in the Rose Bowl every single year.
Well, I 1,000% agree. My ideal format, I'll tell you this, because I was hyping up these big formats, but I'd say 6 teams is perfect. You have the incentive to play hard for a first round bye, or get a home game as a 3 or 4. By the way, I think all on campus except for the last game, Rose Bowl, New Year's Day, and the calendar works out perfectly because you got 2 Saturdays after the conference champ games to play those playoff games, and then boom, Rose Bowl is your natty. So I think that'd be perfect. But genie's out of the bottle now. We can't go back. We can only expand.
I think honestly, the parity in college football now has made the the thought of a 4 to 6 to 8 team playoff even more attractive, because the biggest issue with the 4 team playoff was the same teams were making it over and over again. And then now you look and it's like anybody can be in that top 6 to 8 now. So it's like you have teams like Texas Tech, you have teams like Ole Miss, you have teams like Indiana, teams that were never thought of to make a
Hmm.
4 team or a 6 team or an 8 team playoff that are right there on the cusp. So you would have
Even Texas
crazy
A&M.
meaningful you would have crazy meaningful games throughout the entirety of the year. I'm talking about like I mean, the everything is on the line. Like Alabama's playoff hopes would have been dashed this past weekend, unless they needed like some crazy scenario. But you're talking about the margins would decrease, but it's just like you said, we can't really go back at this point. It's too far gone. A scenario for the conference championship games that has been thrown around is maybe in the SEC and Big Ten only. Is you make the like fourth and fifth place teams play in like a play-in game, and 1 through 3 get like automatic bids to the playoffs, right? And then you have basically a play-in game. Um, and last year, you would have seen like Ole Miss and Alabama playing, or this year you would see like Alabama and Vanderbilt play for a shot, and it's just like a winner take all. You get the last playoff spot type thing. I think that is kind of a way you could fix conference championship weekend, and just like screw the top teams and just say, hey, we're going to let the bubble teams fight it out, because that's what everybody honestly cares about anyway, is who's going to make the playoffs. So those teams that make the conference championship game are pretty much playoff locks from those conferences. So it really doesn't even make much sense for them to even play those games. But, it is what it is. And maybe that's a solution that they look into at some point. I don't know. Um, you couldn't do that in the ACC and the Big 12. So I don't know how you would like even that out. But, that's a hypothetical scenario that I think would be pretty entertaining if you had like a round robin format, maybe even playoff on like the Saturday where you played a 3:30 game against the 4 versus 7 team, and then or a 4 versus 6, and then or no 4 versus 7, and then a 5 versus 6 in your conference standings, and then the two winners of those games went on to represent the playoff. I don't know. It'd be a weird scenario there, but maybe if they expanded to 16, that could work. But it's hard to talk about with the 12 team playoff now and how it's formatted, and I don't know. It's a work in progress to say the least. Right now, they've already changed it once after 1 year, so I'm sure changes are coming the next few years, and we'll see kind of how it plays.
I've got a couple ideas for playoff expansion. I want to bounce off you. Okay, so we're at a point now where not every conference in the sport gets an automatic bid into the tournament. And we're also at a point where those 1 through 4 seeds don't get a home game. So what if we expanded to 16, every conference champ got an auto bid, and then those top 4 teams would get a home game, but they'd get a home game against really some cupcake team. So it's like a first round bye, but you get the epic home playoff game atmosphere, and every conference champ makes it. What do you think about that? It's basically the same playoff, just kind of letting more teams in.
Yeah, and I think getting rid of first round buys that would be like the first thing I would do if it went to 16. I really think coaches hate first round buys. I think
Yeah,
teams don't
all
like
four of them lost
playing
last
those
year.
first round. Yeah, I think teams don't like playing the first round at a neutral site, for those top 4 teams as well. So I think it would be a win-win. I don't think it would be a very hard decision for people to agree upon. Like, hey, we want to play a home playoff game because we're the number one overall team and we feel like we deserve it. That makes total sense to me. But there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things. That's kind of why we wanted to do this show and bring up some good talking points. And it is that time of the year where like you said, we have college football playoff rankings to talk about.
I got another idea. You know how I
Oh
watch
Lord,
NASCAR, right? And
you still
NASCAR's
watch that?
playoff system is really stupid,
It's
but
awful. It's
Yeah,
awful.
but it's like you win one race and you get into the playoffs automatically. So what if we had a setup where you win one game against a top 10 team, you make the playoff? Think about South Carolina, all the big games they would have had, knowing we can make the playoff if we just get this one upset. Think of how epic that could be.
And they still would have not made the playoff
Yeah, because they lost them
because
all, but
they
they were
lost
close.
all of those games.
It's
Yeah,
like
they were
you're a
close.
7-loss
They were
team, but
close
you get this
without that
one win.
scenario, Will. They
What?
were close without that scenario, Will. So what would that have changed? You know,
I don't know. Maybe they
they
would have played a little harder, knowing the play. No, they played pretty hard though. But just imagine the extra stakes of the Iron Bowl. You got a 6-loss Auburn playing Alabama, knowing if we win, not only do we beat them, probably end their season, but we make the playoff.
we'll just do it South Carolina high school football format, and we'll just take the top 12 teams in each conference, and then there's like two teams in the conferences that don't make it. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's a
it
good
takes
idea.
absolute
Like
skill to not make a college football playoff.
yeah, like you got to have only
You know,
2, 3 wins to not make it. That might be a good setup.
yeah, like who doesn't want to see first round game Ohio State hosting Boston College at 1-9, but they got in because they won that last game of the season to make them 2-10 or whatever. You know,
Boston
like
College hung with Georgia Tech. They can hang with the big dogs. Don't sleep on them.
exactly. Unfortunately, they could not. But that is kind of the silliness that is the college football playoff nowadays. It used to be simple, Will. It used to be
Mhm.
very simple. You just showed up on Saturday, played your games. People actually used to look forward to like bowl games and stuff, and now and nobody cares. You know, the who's in mentality, man. It's
Mhm.
taken over college football, and it has ruined it. Ruined the good old days. Of like winning the Sugar Bowl was like a huge deal. You know, and now it's not. Nobody cares at all. And so it is what it is. That's what we're here to talk about. That's the groundbreaking ideas that the future commissioners of are on the council. We'll be on the council. Josh Pate's probably going to be the commissioner. We're going to be on the council advising him. But that's what it's going to look like. We're going to have
The
relegation. All
128 team
right.
playoff. 2 months worth of college
We are
football
going to
playoffs.
First thing on the agenda is conference realignment back to regional base. All right. Well, I don't want to see Oregon playing ball. I don't want to see them playing Maryland in a conference game. Do not want to see it ever. All right. I want the Big East back. All right. I want the Big East freaking back. All right. It's a joke that the Big East is not a conference anymore. All right. They got this stupid American conference now. All right. It needs to come back. I need the old Southwest Conference back with all the Texas schools in it and Arkansas. All right. Just give me the good stuff. That's what I want. Like give me all these teams out of the SEC. Like I'm trying to go back to the roots. Back when college football was great. You know. So that's pretty much the basis of today. We've rambled a lot here. So we're gonna wrap it up. And if you're still watching this, first of all, thank you. All right, and sorry that you suffered through that last 5 minutes of rambling. But we appreciate you, and we hope that you subscribe. If you're watching still, you better be subscribed because you're dedicated, and we appreciate you. Will's in the Christmas spirit. He's giving out free subscriptions. All you got to do is go on the page and press the little subscribe button, and boom, you're done. You've earned a free subscription. And that is all courtesy of our guy, Will. He is making dreams come true and help us realize our dreams by subscribing. So thank you. We appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Follow us on all our socials. Don't forget to do that. And wave bye to Will.